Siomra beag.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sure Look, Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure Look, Sure Listen.
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 Sure look, sure listen. Oh, very exciting, Benjamin. Big news for the listeners this week. It's another Sunday episode. Why are we recording on Sunday and not a usual Monday? Is Ben going somewhere or doing something important? Once again, that's none of your business, listeners. But look, we don't have time to reprimand you for being too nosy about Ben's personal life, because we've loads of stuff to look at, including the most exciting and scary trailer Ben has ever sent me with Oddity. We got a trailer for Watchmen, Why Watches the Watchmen, and we got a trailer for the most beloved season of last year's getting a new season, Arcane Season 2, and Ben and I have both seen The Boys Season 4. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it divisive?
Who knows, Michael? Sure, listen, if that's not enough, and it really is a tighter content schedule than we'd like, Michael, for a weekly pop culture podcast.
Because Benjamin, it's Sunday, so the big thing is going to come out. Last time we recorded on a Sunday, the next day was the Venom trailer. So I assume...
Yeah.
And the last time we recorded before that was the Deadpool trailer. So anytime we record on a Sunday, something big comes out on the Monday. So whatever it is we're missing, we're not just ignoring it, it's just too early. Because Ben's doing something secret.
Or am I, listeners? None of your business!
It's none of your business! Stop asking
business.
so many questions about Ben's business.
Michael, if the listeners don't stop asking me questions about my business, I'll feed them to the wolves, Michael.
Oh, yes, good.
I'll feed them to the wolves. Because as we know, Michael, nature is not always so kind to humanity, which is the topic of this week's podcast. Nature red in tooth and claw, Michael. The savage nature of fiction and places you wouldn't want to be as a human, or animals you wouldn't want to encounter in fiction and the like.
Yeah, they'll et you up. Ben, speaking of places you would never want to be, West Cork.
Oh, fucking in the bin.
Get it in the bin. It's the most terrifying place on earth. So we got a trailer for the new film from your mates over at Shudder, Ben. Are you okay? You having an allergic attack or are you crying?
No, I'm enjoying myself, Michael.
Oh.
I'm just bracing myself for the horror of Oddity on Shudder.
Yeah, your mates over at Shudder have sent us a new trailer, Benjamin, for the film Oddity. And I tell you what, the most Irish thing I've ever seen up on screen.
Michael, there's so much Irish horror here, and we're not just talking about West Cork.
No, well, we are, to be honest.
Yeah, to be honest. If it's not Wicklow, it's West Cork, ladies and gentlemen. Bray or West Cork, those are your choices as horror locales go in Ireland.
Now, Benjamin, to my eternal shame, this is the first I've heard of this director. It's the first I've heard of his career. How have I... Benjamin, I am a paper horror fan. I'm no horror fan am I, it turns out, because... one of the most acclaimed horror films of recent years has come from this very island, Ireland. And I not only didn't see it and didn't help promote it by reviewing it and talking about it on a moderately popular podcast, I also didn't watch it.
Yeah, Michael, it's bloody Damian McCarthy. He's great.
Is he?
Well, he makes a good horror film, Michael.
Now,
that's nice, isn't it?
I'm going to challenge you here, Benji. Have you seen Damian McCarthy's first film, Caveat?
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't. I didn't suspect you had, to be honest.
Dude, I haven't, Michael.
Yeah.
I did. Well, you see right through me. Not unlike the blind psychic in this, who sees right through to the other side of the veil, Michael.
I tell you, so the story here, good trailer, first of all, because
yes,
very spooky and scary. A woman is alone in a home with a big old door on it, and too big a viewing hatch, if you ask me. You could get a hand in through that.
You get a fair bit in through that, Michael. I wouldn't fancy that now if that was my only security between me and the outside.
Exactly, Ben. And then a spooky fella with one eye comes along and says, "Oh no, I'm not trying to get in to get you. I'm warning you that there's someone in there with you." And it's the classic, "Oh, he's already in there with you" twist.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things I think, Michael, is that one of the great things that it does is, first of all, it taps into a very human fear at the beginning. I always enjoy that in a horror film. And then they subvert the expectation. It's not actually the creepy man at the door who's the threat. There's some kind of supernatural being on in there with her. But the initial thing, Michael, harkens back to that absolutely raging debate on the old TikToks and Instagrams at the minute, man versus bear, Michael. Would you rather be stuck in the woods with a man or a bear? And in this particular case, Michael, it's a very obvious answer of, I'd rather have a bear in the house than a man at my front door with my very big peephole hatch.
But then I think the bear gets her, Ben.
Yeah, it's a supernatural bear, Michael, and that's the unfortunate part. So one of the other things I enjoy, Michael, is that when we as viewers are let in on the supernatural nature of the film, but we get a good old healthy dose of, no, hang on, she was just a silly woman who let a man into the house, and all the viewers are going, no, she wasn't, there's a ghost.
She wasn't,
there's a ghost or something.
Some sort of spooky fella. It wasn't Taj Murphy. Taj Murphy is really a one-eyed gentleman, Ben.
He is, yeah.
He's a genuine one-eyed gentleman. I'm sure he is a gentleman.
Tig Murphy, Michael.
I'm pretty sure that's pronounced Taj, Ben. Tadgh. Taj.
Michael spent time up the north of Ireland this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and he's come back with some slurs in his mouth. It's terrible stuff. He's Tig Murphy, Michael, and he is a one-eyed man in real life, and probably a gentleman, Michael. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this podcast. But this centres around that exact murder, Michael. Danny is the name of the character. She's played by Carolyn Bracken. And basically she and her husband Ted, speaking of getting names wrong, I'm great at it myself, Michael.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, I will say that one of the bloody breakdowns of this made me realise that it's not, I don't think the murder takes place in Ireland. I think Carolyn and her sister are Irish. Or
go on.
The Brits are at it again, because one of the summaries of this says, move into a new home in the British countryside.
Oh, no.
And Michael, I'll be very interested to see if this is set in West Cork where it's supposed to be. and some fuck at the promotion office has put in the wrong fucking area. That'll be interesting. But her murder occurs under mysterious circumstances, Michael. The man who came to the door is blamed. And then a year later, her twin sister Darcy, who's also played by Kraken, and a blind psychic who runs an oddity shop. That's what she is. She's a blind psychic, Michael. She goes to visit Ted and his new girlfriend. Oh, he moved on. Dun, 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 dun.
Go on.
Well, it's just terrible that he moved on so quickly, isn't it?
Right.
And she goes to visit her in her home. And Darcy brings a bit of an unusual support mechanism, a coping mechanism with her, Michael. Do you want to guess what it is?
Is it a big, huge, horrible wooden mannequin man?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it in the trailer, Ben. I was like, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Ooh, brother, ooh." That's what I said.
Oh, Michael, we're just a couple of meme lords who really have our fingers on the pulse of TikTok these days.
I've been on a lot of TikToks, Ben. You can't be on a TikTok without hearing someone say, "Ooh, brother, ooh." So now that's the thing we're going to do on the podcast every week.
Ooh, brother. Ooh. Yeah, so apparently, Michael, it's hinted at very slightly in the trailer that the big creepy mannequin was gifted to her by her mother, who was a witch. I think what we're probably getting, Michael, is a good old-fashioned case of the mad woman in the attic, but actually this time wasn't her fault at all. She wasn't mad at all.
No, it actually was ghosts who did the murder. Benjamin, my mother gifts me with weird tat every Christmas. I'd love instead a giant wooden man-sized mannequin creature.
Michael, I'm almost fairly certain you've come around to my house after Christmas every year and gone, do you want this giant man-sized mannequin my mother's given me for Christmas?
My mother's given me this for Christmas, Benjamin. Famously, Benjamin, my mother doesn't listen to this podcast, but she does listen to the reels. So as long as we don't put this bit in the reels, we'll be fine.
Pamela, this one's for you.
We'll be out of trouble.
What does your mother call me again? Is it loud? Is that what I am to your mother?
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. It's broadcastable.
Oh no, your mum thinks I'm secretly muting you on the reels.
That's what she thinks you do. My mum thinks you cut me out of the reels. Which, you know, I have my own suspicions as well, to be honest. Benjamin, though, look, this looks great. I'm going to watch Caveat tonight, though, because I only saw this trailer today.
Very good.
And immediately said, this is my wheelhouse. How have I not seen this? So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to find Caveat for myself, even if I have to pay Shudder to send it to me.
Michael, I think, first of all, ladies and gentlemen at Shudder, we love you. Just do a collab with us. We'll be in films for you. If you're doing another creepy Ireland thing, let us know.
Ben will get murdered on screen You know how every film has to start with someone who does a podcast getting killed these days? Ben will do that.
Yeah.
He'll even sacrifice himself nobly, and you can actually kill him, therefore saving on your special effects budget.
Michael's been trying to find a way to bump me off the podcast for years.
Only at my mother's behest, though, to be fair.
Yeah. He's always lowering my son on the podcast. My son's got a lovely voice too.
Lovely voice.
Says Pamela.
That's what she says.
Yeah, that's what she says. Yeah, Caveat's real creepy as well, Michael. It's got another weird prosthetic puppet in the form of a hare. Have you seen that?
Yeah, don't spoil it too much because I know almost nothing about it other than it's universally loved.
Well,
so
then
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Right.
So shut
we'll
your
watch
trap,
it together,
Ben,
Michael.
is what I'm saying. Shut your trap is what I'm saying.
I'll bring over the Sure Look, Sure Listen wooden mannequin.
Yeah.
I'll put it between us and we'll have a chat about it.
Yeah, Gary the mannequin. We'll bring him to Comic-Con
Michael,
this
speaking of universally beloved things
Yes.
that we got news of this week, Arcane Season 2 was announced in the middle of the week as a little teaser.
Oh, how exciting, Benjamin. Now, people loved Arcane. I liked it, but I think I only made it 4 or 5 episodes in.
Yeah, look, I think you have to have that background in League of Legends to really pursue Arcane a little bit. I think there were quite a few things that set Arcane Season 1 apart, Michael. Number one, the animation style really gripped people. People were really into that. They just thought it was fucking great. And then a little bit more on that was the voice acting. People really enjoyed that and they thought it was pretty spectacular.
Who was
It was
it?
also got a bit of...
Was it Hayley Steinfeld and Ella Purnell?
Yeah, I think Ella Purnell might have been in there. I'll look that up now, Michael.
Okay.
Welcome back to Sure Look It Up There, the the weekly pop culture podcast.
It was Ella
Takes
Purnell
a
and Hayley
measured
Steinfeld.
look.
Ben.
Okay, very
It
good.
was,
You were much faster than me. But yeah, so that centered around some of the key characters that we come to know in the League of Legends franchise, Michael. There was Vi and Powder, who becomes Jinx later on. There's Jace Talus, who's the big hammer-wielding fella. And then Silco, who's a big antagonist in the games and stuff like that. And that went pretty well, Michael. It's also very dramatic. One of the things that's really good is it's got some great narrative conflict just constantly clashing. And Michael, we've had to wait a fucking while.
When was it out?
2021.
That is a good old.
2021,
That is a
Michael.
good old time. Yeah.
It's funny, we're getting a lot of follow-up seasons now to a lot of beloved pandemic things, mainly because pandemic production shut everything down, Michael. We didn't get a lot of stuff for a while there.
Yeah.
So we're all playing catch-up now. And some of us, Michael, some of the more cynical podcast co-hosts out there, Michael, might say, do we really care anymore, Michael? But to those people I say, no, probably not. Probably not. But look,
One of the best things about Arcane was how undivisive it was. So, you know, America is tearing itself apart and obsessed with its own culture wars. But Arcane escaped that, which is incredible for a show with 3 female leads and essentially a show about girl power. But the user ratings for it on the likes of IMDb and what's the other one that's useless? Rotten Tomatoes. They're not divisive. It's just all 10s, 8s, 9s and 10s. There isn't the massive undercurrent of half 10s, half 1s that tells you this has divided America. Both sides of the silly American culture war seem to love this. Which I suppose means
they're just in it.
It can be done.
Yeah, look.
What?
Michael.
What?
America will find any excuse to rip itself apart.
Except
Let's
Arcane.
be honest. Except Arcane. But we're getting to season 2, Michael.
Oh,
who fucking knows?
They might fuck it. Is that what you're saying?
America's even further along the fuck you can't do what you tell me. Well, I just want to get a point across. No, fuck you, pal.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Yeah, look, it does seem to be universally beloved. This teaser trailer has people chomping at the bit a little bit, Michael, because we got a lot of glimpses of possible plotline progressions from season 1.
Oh.
Along with, so we got a few different things. The war between Piltover and Zon is going to kick off all over again, Michael. Those are the 2 factions within it. There's the upper class fucking Fancyvilles.
Oh, yeah.
Versus the underground working class, essentially, Michael. Hup the proletariat, as we say here on the podcast, Michael. Go on, the fictional proletariat.
Go on, the
Fucking
proles.
Sock it to them. Go on, the proles. Go on. Yeah, pack of hard-working sons of bitches. Vi is coming back, Michael. It looks like we've got a classic case of all the poachers become gamekeepers, because it looks like Vi has been deputized into the old police force.
Isn't the character of Vi, though, from the games an enforcer? Isn't she one of the kind of police? So I think we knew that. I think we knew that's where her character progression was going. And by we, I don't mean we as in you and I, because neither of us play League of Legends or are particularly versed in League of Legends lore. But I think we as an audience, I believe, knew that.
Okay, so that's not so shocking.
We knew it from the outset that we were essentially watching the story of two sisters with a strong bond, but who become an outlaw and an enforcer along the way.
Along the way. Yeah, so there's a few other things that have people super excited, Michael, because it looks to be leaning more into the League of Legends characters that we understand and giving us kind of origin stories for them. One of the big ones that we're hearing a lot is that there's a glimpse of Warwick. There's a still in not a still, but a glimpse, Michael, of a very large, clawed, furry-looking man at one point.
Oh, yeah.
It looks to be a reference to the character of Warwick, who's a pretty famous character in League of Legends. And
not famous enough, mind, that I've heard of him.
Not that you've heard of him, Michael, but you're no League of Legends fan, are you?
No great League of Legends fan am I, Benjamin. I didn't know a single pittance of the lore of League of Legends before Arcane Season 1.
Yeah, sure, nor did I, Michael. Nor did I. But come here to me.
Go on.
Come here to me.
What is it?
Warwick is pretty interesting. Warwick is known as the Uncaged Wrath of Zon. And he's a monstrous figure in the League of Legends universe. He was transformed into a beast due to the mad experiments of the scientist Singed or Singed. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, unfortunately. Because, again, Michael, don't play League of Legends.
Don't play
Not really sure.
Don't know what's going on.
Warwick prowls the undercity of Zon, driven by bloodthirsty rage and desire to hunt down criminals. So he's pretty spooky. He's a bit of a boogeyman, Michael. But what has people super excited about this is, in League of Legends, Michael, we don't actually know who Warwick was. We know that he was once a man who tried to leave a violent past behind, and then was experimented on as a result of that. And it all went a little bit wrong for him. He got transformed into that big thing. But
and we might find out who
the old
it was.
Yeah, and the running theory, Michael, and I look forward to putting this on YouTube and being told 6 months from now that I'm wrong, even though this is a prediction based on a fan theory, based on a teaser trailer, when Season 2 of Arcane hasn't even come out
come out yet, and we don't know what we're talking about. Just bear that in mind too.
And no great League of Legends fans. But apparently, Michael, it could be Vander. Vander was the guardian figure for Vi and Powder in Season 1. And we saw he got sort of transformed into a monstery boy, but then he disappeared, Michael. His body was left behind by Vi. She ran off into the night.
Let me, Benjamin, give you a reaction to work with for your little reel. Really? Not Vander?
Not Vander, proud and noble Vander, a man who tried to leave his violent past behind, only to be preyed upon by a mad scientist. Yeah, very good.
Very good, Benjamin. Speaking of mad scientists, though, the mad scientists over at Warner Brothers have decided that it's time, once again, for us to watch Watchmen.
Oh, fuck me, Michael. What on earth is going on?
Well, here's the thing, Benjamin. Have you ever heard of Watchmen? So Watchmen was a very popular comic from the 1980s. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons.
Oh, really? I've never heard this.
Yeah, no, it was very popular, Ben. It was a deconstruction of comic book tropes of the time. It was it was a commentary on the kind of grim and gritty comic book characters.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? Can I tell you something about it? Very popular.
Yeah, very popular, Michael. Some would say a redefining of comics and a launching of the comic book genre into postmodernism altogether. Such deconstruction, such metafiction, Michael.
Incredible
stuff. So many layers.
Incredible stuff. And the funny thing about it is, because Alan Moore is a mentalist, it's never been adapted for film and television before, despite many attempts.
No, it's never happened, Michael. It's never been adapted. It wasn't adapted in 2009.
Yeah.
It wasn't adapted by HBO into a little TV series in 2019. It certainly wasn't adapted into a motion comic book that people can watch for free on YouTube.
Ben, I'm just going to correct you there for a second. It actually was all of those things that you've just said. What? Yeah, no, they already did all that. So the thing that people said was the issue, one of the big issues with the adaptation of the 2009 version by your friend and mine, Zachary Snyder.
Yeah.
Was that, if anything, hold on, I'm going to travel back to 2009 and be a 2009 film critic. If anything...
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks. If anything, it's too loyal to the comic book that it adapts. And, you know, other than changing the costumes, modernising the costumes and changing the ending a little bit, and maybe ever so slightly therefore missing the point, other than those things, it's almost a scene for scene and word for word adaptation, especially if you watch the director's cut with the pirate bits added back in.
Yeah, they stick them all back in there, Michael.
They stick them all back in.
The Black Sea.
The Black Sail?
Black Pirate?
Black Pirate? The
Black Sail. You're right, Michael. You're right.
Am I?
I think it's...
Is that another...
well, you spin your wheels there. Hang on.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, but then, look. If
Tales of the Black Freighter, Michael.
The Black
Tales
Freighter,
of the Black Freighter.
That's what it is. Benjamin,
yeah.
If that live-action adaptation from 2009 was a little bit too deviant from the comic for you, and you don't have the patience to sit down and read a comic and hold it in your frail human hands, then...
those tiny twig hands.
Tiny little twiggly hands that you have, dear Watchmen viewer. You can just watch the motion comic where they voice acted the entire comic as faithfully as you could possibly get, because it's the comic.
Panel by panel.
Panel by panel is the comic voice acted.
Yeah, Michael.
They just seem... I mean, I hate to be complaining so much. I love it. But I hate to be complaining so much. But why are they doing this now? Are they completing the triumvirate of slightly unnecessary adaptations?
Michael, this is... So we're getting... Sorry, to reel us back in here from our fun little japing about this, Michael. We got a teaser trailer again for another series of animated things from Warner Brothers, Watchmen Chapters 1 and 2. So we're getting a two-parter feature-length animation of the Watchmen comic by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Right?
Yeah.
To which anyone would look and say, why would anyone watch The Watchmen once more?
Why watches The Watchmen, Ben?
Yeah, why watches The Watchmen, as the famous adage goes. But come here to me. One of the oddest things about this, Michael, is, and this is pure griping. This is pure griping.
All
for
right,
me,
gripe away.
The animation looks a bit shite.
It looks like if Arcane was cheap. Yeah. So give us Arcane, but do it cheaper.
So it's the worst timing ever, Michael, from Warner Brothers, because they've released this the same week as the Arcane Season 2 trailer. So anyone who's just watched both is going, oh, that one looks much better.
That one looks
Arcane looks much better.
That looks so much better, and I haven't already seen it twice.
Yeah, how engaging, how fun. One of the things that bothers me about it is, Michael, do you remember back in the day when Bruce Timm started doing the Justice League cartoon for Warner Brothers?
Vividly, Ben.
Yeah, so pretty big moment for us. But you remember the opening animation sequence to that used 3D versions of the Justice League in kind of noir silhouettes?
Rubbish.
Doesn't hold up. Somebody who worked on that title sequence got their second chance at DC nearly 20 years later, Michael.
Yeah, I was watching this trailer going, this barely even counts as animation. Just call it CG. I know that you can make great stuff with computer animation, and the distinction between computer animation and traditional animation will become ever and ever smaller, and, you know, it's probably my elder millennial brain going, if someone's not drawing it, is it even animation? But I didn't have that gripe about Arcane, say. But something about the animation style of this griped me. And I think it's that it's based on a comic which has already been adapted a couple of times, including a motion comic. So we know exactly what this would look like. So what is this art style? And I've done air quotes there. bringing to the situation that's justifying a new version of this.
Yeah, art style, tone, voice direction, Michael. Rorschach sounds exactly like he did in the 2009 adaptation.
Human being juice.
He sounds exactly like he did in the motion comic. They're not doing anything new, Michael. They're just doing it again. Now,
Do it again.
look,
Do it again!
could
Do
be
it again!
wrong here, and there could be a massive shift in material
Nah, there
in the
won't be.
style of... No, there won't be, but I'm trying to keep a positive spin on things, Michael. I don't like being a negative podcast, Michael.
I know.
But they keep making shit like this.
Benjamin, here's a positive spin on it, though. What I would have loved to see, and it would have justified it to me, do you remember that there was a YouTube animator a few years ago? Oh, this is probably 15 years ago now, who made an opening sequence for a Watchmen cartoon show if it had been made in the 80s.
Oh, no, that sounds great.
It is. So it was a YouTube creator called Harry Partridge, and he, like, it's only a minute and a half or so, but it's super worth watching because it's, like I said, it's what Watchmen would have looked like if it had got a cartoon series in the vein of Ghostbusters and Thundercats. And, well, I suppose Ghostbusters is a better example of an adult series that was adapted to be a kid-friendly show. It's a fabulous...
That sounds class.
It is. It's great. It's so good. And if this even had gone for that art style, I think I would have felt more... Its existence would have been more justified in putting a... Let's say putting a definitively comic accurate version of Watchmen out there in the animated / live action world. This animation doesn't feel definitive enough. It doesn't feel justified enough to call. Now we have it. We've always wanted it. We've always wanted the perfect adaptation. And Zack Snyder did a lot right, but he did a lot wrong.
He did.
So let's take another crack at it and let's really give them the perfect adaptation. And then there was someone in the corner going, that's the art style we're going with, though? For the definitive adaptation? We're going with that? All right, okay.
It's so strange. There is something of a ship of Theseus feel to the whole thing, where,
Go on.
you know, how many degrees of extraction can a franchise survive before it is unrecognizable from its source material? And what I mean by that is, Michael...
Star Wars. Sorry, go on. Sorry, what?
I enjoyed that.
Sorry.
Oh, that was very good, Michael. Do you know, I have to say, over the last couple of years, and this is more a compliment to you, Michael,
Thanks,
than a compliment to anything to do with this, I've really started to enjoy this podcast more as a principle.
Yeah, it's probably better.
I don't know what it is.
It's probably better that we enjoy it, isn't it? It's probably better that we enjoy it, so then even if no one else listens, at least we're not wasting our time.
Well, that's the exact situation we find ourselves in week by week, Michael.
Oh,
so
yeah,
fine.
forgot.
But come here to me. At a certain point, you have to look at Watchmen. Watchmen was a seminal watershed moment at a certain point in comics history. So I think Watchmen first came out in 1987?
I wanted to say 86, but I will admit I was guessing.
I am going to check that now. But yeah, so it originally came out, and Michael, it was a huge moment of deconstruction for the comic book genre. Oh, it was 1987. It came out in it came out monthly in 1986, Michael, and came out in its first collected edition in 1987.
So in a sense, we were both right, but in a more accurate sense,
but you were more right.
I was more right. Yeah, that's fine. We'll go with that.
And Michael, at that moment in time, absolutely a watershed moment for comics, a complete deconstruction of how we build the superhero narrative, of the archetypes of comic books. You had the vigilante, you had the detective, you had
Gadget Man,
the femme fatale, Gadget Man. You know, you had all these kind of things, and each one parodied one of those archetypes. And then Alan Moore does this amazing thing where he brings the realistic terror that a real life Superman would bring to the world. He illustrates that. The political upheaval, the catastrophic shift in global politics and understanding that would come with a being that could, you know, explode the world, you know? And Michael, we've seen it all now at this point nearly 30 years, more than 30 years later. I'm not good at maths, Michael. Help me.
40.
How far along are we from 1986?
Nearly 40
Yeah,
years.
nearly
man.
40 years. But now that narrative is bog fucking standard, Michael. That narrative is a modern part of the comic book landscape. Jesus Christ, maybe superheroes are more hassle than they're worth. Maybe it's just a fucking disaster. And I don't know if there's any value to seeing a loyal adaptation to a comic book that is now slightly
Yes.
out of date in a saturated market.
Oh, take that, Alan Moore. Benjamin, I thought that whole diatribe was a segue into this week's review of The Boys.
It was.
It was very good. Into The Boys
I had to
season
finish my
4.
point.
You couldn't just let it go, though. You couldn't just segue it smoothly. Anyway, in The Boys season 4 is a TV show about superheroes being trite and far too powerful for their own good. Or it used to be.
It used to be, Michael. So this is interesting. Oh, boys. The Boys is back, Michael, filling the void that X-Men 97 has left behind. Yeah, look, we got episodes 1 through 3 this week, Michael, in a big, massive, deluxe drop of episodes on Amazon Prime.
Fabulous.
I've seen one of them. You've seen 3.
Fabulous weekend's content, Bent. More content for the grist mill.
More content for the grist mill. Now, the end of season 3 is key here, Michael. The end of season 3 saw Erin Moriarty's Starlight turning her back on the whole affair and saying, fuck this superhero lark, I'm getting on social media, I'm telling the world what it's actually. And the bombshell at the end of season 3, Michael, is that she tells the world that superheroes are a bit shite.
Superheroes are shite and everyone's just faking it. Alright, come here, look. We're no great fans here of the comic book series The Boys.
No, Michael, sticky pages aside, it's just not that good.
I've got my copy here with all of its own sticky pages. Gross. But Ben, this season 4 is easily... Now, one of the best things about this show has been that it's diverging from the comic. It's taken the basic idea and gone, that's a fab idea. Let's tone it down a little bit, which might sound weird if you've seen this season so far, but let's tone it down a little bit and let's make it a little bit more mainstream. And that was, to its eternal credit, probably the best decision they made. One of the best things about the show. Now, season 4, though, funnily enough, season 1 through halfway through 3 very much were about what you were saying of what if there was a terrifying Superman who, what could you do? What could you do if there was a terrifying, off his hinges Superman character who could kill you in an instant if you as much as misspoke in front of him, but was projected as this all-powerful, all-good, all-American hero. And in a way, they've chipped away at that a lot. So much so, that's actually not what this show's about anymore. This show is now, it always has been, political allegory for modern American politics. But now it just really and truly is an allegory for American politics with superhero violence thrown in.
Yeah. Look, it's broken into two camps. The two factions that we get in this, Michael, are the Starlighters and the... What are they called? The Home...
Home?
It's not the Homelanders, it's...
The Home...
They get a special name all to themselves.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. The Home Fronters? The Home Teamers?
The
Home
Home
Teamers.
Fronters,
Home
I think.
Teamers.
Home Teamers. Yeah. So, look, break it down any way you want. It's Democrats versus Trump, I think, at this point, is what we're looking at in that allegory. I wouldn't even say it's Democrats. I don't think we can even say it's Democrats. I think you could say left versus right, fucking hard leftist politics versus hard right politics. Do you know what I mean? Conservative politics. It depends on what way you break it down. But the two factions within this world are Team Starlight, who align themselves to hard leftist values, if you want.
I would say moderate leftist values, to be honest.
Moderate leftist values, let's be honest, because we can get into that actually, because I think that's a pretty interesting point to make, Michael. I think that's a pretty interesting point to make. The Starlight Foundation, House of Light, or something like that. Some interesting shit going on there, talking about donations and the like, but we'll get into it. One of the big issues that came out of season 3 in terms of fan reaction,
yes, go on,
was a muddying of the waters. And what emerged from season 3 was an awful lot of questioning around how Homelander was meant to be portrayed, because certain fans after season 3 adopted a very similar slogan to X-Men 97. Magneto was right. A lot of people are saying Homelander did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So
go on.
That was an interesting thing that emerged, Michael. And at the end of season 3, I think the creators tried to drive home the point that Homelander is quite wrong, in that he lasers a man to death for throwing a can at his invulnerable son, and is then roundly applauded by his bloodthirsty fan base.
Could have had anthrax in it, Ben.
Could have had anthrax in it, Michael. And we'll get into that now, I think, a little bit in this season. But one of the big critiques that came out was Homelander did nothing wrong. And Michael, episode 1 of season 4 is a resounding fuck you to that point of view.
Well, again, this is what I mean. This, I think first of all, I've really enjoyed this series. The action is good. The plot is good. There's very much a point to it. It hasn't got the kind of central theme running through it this year of let's get Soldier Boy to kill Homelander, because again, maybe something is going to happen that's going to change this, but they've to a degree neutered Homelander in terms of being terrifying. For example, in slight mild spoilers here, but HBO themselves, is this on HBO? Amazon themselves have released clips of this, and you can't walk around. They've taken advantage of the fact that actor Anthony Starr is actually a fairly slight little fella, and they had Homelander appear out of costume for the first time, going to visit someone in his civvies, and it canonically establishes that he's wearing a muscle suit. That Homelander is wearing a muscle suit. Not actor Anthony Starr is wearing a muscle suit, but the actual character of Homelander is wearing a muscle suit. And he's not as terrifying in this because he's being presented now as a political opponent. And in a way, they've made Vicky Newman, that's her name, isn't it? She's the more terrifying one in terms of powers and abilities and what she might do. And I don't know, maybe they might be building up towards reversing this again and having Homelander being this terrifying force. But it feels a little bit like it's lost its way in that sense. Of season 1 was about getting a team together and going, how can we kill these fuckers? And now it's about getting a team together and saying, how can we prove them wrong politically so that people will join our side?
Yeah, the most interesting introduction there, well, I guess you could break it down to a simpler form, which is the first one gave you a really clear target of what needed to happen to make the antagonist or the bad guy go away. You know, season 3 is how the fuck do we take Homelander off the board? And there were ways of managing that. There were, you could threaten him politically, you could threaten his public image, you could get dirt on him, pay dirt, there were a few things you could do. And then at the end of season 3, they wipe all that because Starlight plays her ultimate hand and he doesn't give a fuck. And that's interesting. It's a great way to up the stakes. It's a great way to add menace to the character. But you're right, in a sense, this season is far more, it's not how do superheroes fuck up a system, it's what kind of system produces such fucked up superheroes. And it's a much deeper look at the psyche of the American public and why the hero worship of people who have been proven to be unworthy of that worship still get to rise to the top. It's very interesting.
It is. It's very good. It's very interesting. But it's very different from where it was. And I can see why the response to it hasn't been quite as positive.
Has it not been positive?
It has been positive. It has been positive. The response has been positive, but just not quite as positive. Yeah. For me, again, just for me, as boring as I find American politics, the left versus right divide that is now the central plot of this season, I don't care. I do not care about which side of the American political divide superheroes are on. Doesn't interest me in the slightest. I would much rather an espionage show about finding a way to kill these fuckers, because they are, they're dangerous. They're not politically dangerous because they are comical representations of the enemy. And in its credit, I feel, as an outsider, that this is pretty even keel in terms of presenting two sides of an argument, but definitely with a pretty leftist lean to it. An American leftist lean.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key phrase there. The most interesting addition to me for episode 1, and probably one of the most interesting character introductions we've seen in the entire series, is Sister Sage.
Go on.
Because originally when I was watching the trailer for this, I thought Sister Sage was going to be your classic version of a Candace Owen in American politics, a person of color who turns on their own community in favor of garnering power within a system that will never actually respect them. Do you understand?
I do understand. Thank you for asking me if I understand. I don't necessarily agree, and I imagine Candace Owen would be very upset to hear you describe her like that.
Yeah, well, look, that's too bad. If you don't want to be described that way, don't do that kind of thing, But that's not the character we get at all. I think Sister Sage is almost presented to us, and I haven't seen episodes 2 and 3 of this season, so I could be wrong.
Yes, go on.
But she's almost presented as apolitical. She's a chess player without an agenda necessarily. She just wants to see if she's the smartest woman in the room.
The smartest person in the room, Ben. Not just the
smartest person
woman.
in the room, yes. As is pointed out in episode 1. But it's funny because she is manipulated by Homelander, whether she thinks she is or not, because he turns around and says, when are you going to get a chance to see your theories put to the test? When are you going to get this opportunity again? And that's ultimately what makes her turn on her stance of, fuck the costumes, fuck that political game playing bullshit. And Homelander's, no, I'm giving you power.
I think that this is an incredibly dangerous move for the writers to take, because one of the most dangerous things you, as a writer who's not a genius, can do is attempt to write a character who is the smartest person in the world. It's impossible to write a character who's the smartest person in the world, because you have to accept. Now, granted, it's supposed to be literally her superpower, so
yeah,
there's a certain aspect of you can just make it, oh yeah, no, I knew that, obviously. The rest of the world can be going, how could she possibly have known that? And you go, superpower, don't worry about it. But it worries me that her superpower of being the smartest person in the world feels dangerously close to Sherlock Holmes from the absolute horseshit Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes show.
Yeah, where nothing is a surprise. It's interesting, and again, I think I'm on the back foot here because I haven't seen episodes 2 and 3. But is it implied that she has super intelligence in all situations, or does she have the ability of absorbing and retaining information at a ludicrously fast rate? What is the power?
All we get is that she's the smartest person in the world, which, is how Reed Richards was introduced in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And look what that fucking idiot did. And look
how he got
within 5 minutes.
Within 5 minutes. Why would you tell your enemy the absolute weakness of your thing? What a silly thing to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, aside from that, it does put writers in a corner, because they don't even have the MacGuffins of an established comic universe to play with. Ultimately, The Boys TV series, I think particularly, portrays a world where superheroes really don't fit, because the rest of the world is progressing at a similar timeline to our own, except for the fact that they've got these fucking lunatics running around. There's no aliens, there's no portals to other dimensions, there's no elder gods waiting in the cosmos. These are human experiments that don't belong in the world that they fit in, they are the only anomaly. When you write, Lex Luthor has a million different ways to outsmart people. Well, I had a conference with a scientist from Randor. I contacted them through a portal, and he gave me this technology that stops Superman. And, you know, that's how Lex gets one over. He has a million MacGuffins to lean on, or a million back issues to rewrite and retcon stuff in. You don't have that in The Boys. You have a very realistic world with people who have very limited power sets.
All I can say is don't be the writer with the hubris to create. And I wouldn't have thought the writers of this had the hubris to try and write a character who's the smartest person in the world. So I'm expecting a bit of a pendulum to drop that maybe she doesn't have any powers whatsoever, and this is all a long con. And that would be fun, actually.
I think there's a few ways that the writers are hinting at that, and you're welcome to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but one of the ones is she doesn't realise Homelander's coming. She fully admits, she says, it's not often I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, she doesn't know that she's being surveilled outside of her clandestine plot to set up MAGA supporters. You know, she's not that.
Yeah, I don't know. We have to reserve judgment on it because we don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And it may actually turn out to be pretty clever. But so far, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies because I never like when a show introduces a character who's the smartest. Benjamin, if I ever write anything, I will never have a character at any stage, a hero, a villain, like a side character. I'll never introduce a character smarter than me. Because how would I write them? How could I write someone smarter than me, Ben? And the writers of The Boys aren't geniuses.
They're good writers.
Yeah.
They're not geniuses.
They're not geniuses. So one or two of them might be. You never know. One or two of them might be legitimate members of Mensa. But, you know...
Who's to say?
Who's to say? They could probably say. They could tell us. They could hop up on Twitter and say, actually...
Yeah, they'd let us know.
But,
yeah,
Benjamin...
If the writers of The Boys could just hop up
on Discord,
directly.
Let us know if they're geniuses or not.
Linked below in the description, ladies and gentlemen.
Link below in the description because we're very clever and we put it there. But Benjamin, even if someone is a genius, there's a fucking big fucking gap between genius, common or garden genius, and the smartest person in the world. I just can't see this ending well unless it turns out to be a twist.
I think there is going to be a... Look, we can only go from previous seasons, Michael, but if there's one thing we can point out is that, you know, the Boys is great at you're actually a very flawed human and not as good as you thought.
Yeah. So
gig.
Fingers crossed on that one.
Fingers crossed on that one. Michael, I tell you what I would hate to see, though.
A polar bear.
Polar bears are terrifying, Michael. What would be even worse?
What? 2 polar bears.
A 12-year-old child who has some kind of strange predatory tendrils that come out of her face. I'd hate to meet that in a dark forest, wouldn't you?
Absolutely terrifying. I'd run away screaming.
Yes, Michael, truly. And that's one of the things that humans face in all forms of fiction, Michael, is sometimes nature's just fucking awful.
Sometimes it's just out to get you.
Sometimes it's just out to get you. Michael, last week I watched a little bit of Scavenger's Reign on Netflix from HBO. And that got my old brain thinking, Michael, because in Scavenger's Reign, things are fucking awful. Everything wants to kill you on the planet that our protagonists find themselves on in Scavenger's Reign. It's a fucking awful place.
Everything wants to get them. Everything wants to get rid of them. Go on.
Everything wants to get them, Michael. There's predatory plants and creatures. There's weird symbiotic relationships that nobody understands. The atmosphere is toxic in different places. The ecosystem is fucking insanely predatory from top to bottom. Everything seems to be omnivorous. They'll have a go at you. They'll work within the system, but if you put a limb a little too close to them, they'll have a nibble. They'll have a nibble.
Little sneaky snacky.
Snackety snack. Yeah, there's all kinds of hallucinations. There's hallucinogenic plants. There's hallucinogenic venoms. It's a shocking place, Michael. And it got me thinking of that old-fashioned quote, Michael. Nature red in tooth and claw.
I believe it was Shirley Bassey who said it.
Yeah, that's who it was. Shirley Bassey, Michael. She lashed it on out there in one of her famous jazz songs. Who's Shirley Bassey? Shirley Bassey? Is that who you mean?
No, I was doing a little joke. I was getting a romance author wrong.
Oh, very good. Yes, that famous Mills and Boone novel, Nature Red in Tooth and Claw. No, Michael. In fact, that particular phrase comes from Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem In Memoriam A.H. from all the way back in 1849.
The Romantic era.
The Romantic era, Michael. And that's probably what sets it apart as a quote. The quote itself is a reference to how horrific the struggle for survival truly is when you see it actually unfold in the wild. Alfred Lord Tennyson was a not really a full romantic, Michael. He really had a few issues with the romanticists, or the romantics as they were known. He thought they were too gentle and would quite often rail against their romanticised portrayal of things. And no different was it here, Michael, where many romantics were writing flowery poetry about the beauty of nature and, oh look, what a lovely flower, it reminds me of my good lady friend.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, no!
Does it?
No! Everything dies in nature. It's fucking awful. It's awful stuff.
Bleach your face.
But it's a great quote, Michael, when we think of things like anything that David Attenborough does. Anything David Attenborough does, Michael. You know, we get the fun narration from David Attenborough's side. We see the lovely stuff. And then sometimes you see a bird's eggs get eaten by a snake while they're out of the nest. And you go, oh, no. Oh, the baby birds.
Oh, they're eaten.
Oh, no.
Oh, that heron is eating those little ducks.
What is going on? What do you mean the mother ate her own children to survive?
Oh, no.
Oh. And that horrific realization that nature does not follow a human moral standard is perfectly encapsulated in the phrase nature red in Tooth and Claw. But it's also generally how nature is portrayed in good old-fashioned science fiction and fantasy. Whenever our heroes come up against a creature, they're just the fucking worst.
Oh, off those planets.
Yeah. It's a real trope, Michael. You pointed out last week to us in Prometheus, the film by Ridley Scott from a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. But you made a great point that the planet they visit there, it's a moon. It's LV-223. Oh, yeah. They find it on an ancient star map, Michael. And they uncover the kind of the engineers, which are the proto-xenomorph or the xenomorph originators, if you want. And they find the deadly biological weapon that happens there. But everything preys on humans on that planet from the second they set foot on it. It's just fucking awful.
They set down on that planet and they just act like fucking idiots. They go, this feels fine. Everyone take off your helmets and poke around. You fucking idiots. Now, Benjamin, you know, as a recovering biologist, I have some rudimentary training in a little bit of rudimentary field training in you don't just go around poking things and go, that looks interesting, I wonder if that's poisonous, and you give it a little lick. Yeah. You don't poke your face down and say, let's see how close I can get to this spore spewing mushroom before it spews spores on me.
Yeah, no, look, insane self-preservation instincts or lack thereof from several characters in that show. That one fella who just pops the helmet off.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Everything feels fine here, doesn't it? Everything feels grand. I'll just pop this helmet off. What's this? Some sort of land snake? Oh, it's down my throat.
Yeah, and then the irritating thing about that, Michael, is they're all said to be scientists or from the scientific community.
Yeah, fucking
To
idiots.
which I would say, someone lied on their fucking CV there, lads.
Or whatever for CVs they have.
Yeah, or whatever a future CV is, you know. But one of the things I think is interesting there, Michael, is very often the twist in the nature red and Tooth and Claw trope is that it is humanity who is the greatest beast of all. We like that as a trope, and in this it's not. It's Michael Fassbender. Michael Fassbender is the worst for
the actor Michael Fassbender. But Benjamin, the funny thing about the movie Prometheus is a lot of what goes wrong in Prometheus is because they're such fucking incompetents, and they take off their helmets and they take off their suits and they get too close to things. So the planet that they're on, or the moon LV-223, it's not that deadly if you go prepared. But there are plenty of planets in science fiction where it doesn't matter how prepared you are, you're going to get mucked up.
I mean, my favourite example of that, Michael, is Pitch Black from 2000. Pitch Black is the first movie in the Chronicle, or in the Riddick films.
Yeah.
And it's It is.
Yeah, but is it?
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Is it
No,
really?
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Riddick became something altogether more after this film, and it's arguably why the Chronicles or the Pitch Black film is still better than everything that came after it.
Yeah.
Riddick is an interesting one. I think Vin Diesel really started making out with his own ego after that. And it's just, it is one of the best introductory space horrors that I've found, in terms of the world is established. We're all traveling in space. It's fine. We don't need to go into any elaborate details on how we travel in space or what the crack is, or, you know, there's prison ships, there's bounty hunters. It's basically humanity in space. We're not going to waste too much time explaining exactly how that works. It doesn't matter. It's not essential to the plot.
Yeah.
It's a classic, fuck, we're stranded. How do we fix this kind of thing? So, in this transport ship carrying a whole bunch of people and a prisoner. That's all we know. There's a prisoner on the ship. It's a classic. Oh, we have to commandeer this vehicle to transport our prisoner. To which all the regular passengers are like, "Well, hold on, hang on a minute.
Hold on a minute
What?
now. There's no nighttime bat monsters, are there?
Oh, please don't say there's nighttime bat monsters." So they find themselves on a sand planet, Michael. It's all very Dune for a couple of minutes. But what happens is the survivors are trying to figure out what happened on the planet. They crash. Nobody wants to let Riddick out of his enclosure because they don't trust him. Who would, Michael? You've just told he's one of the most dangerous men on the planet. But then, Michael, we find out that, like cicadas or locusts, Michael, this planet has a very unusual brood spawn and consequence to it, as a natural system goes. So the day and night cycle of this planet is insane. It's years at a time of light or dark. So I'm trying to remember the exact nature of it. But essentially, Michael, the survivors find themselves stranded on the planet during the day. And that's fine.
Go on.
Unless they explore the Earth's or the planet's surface and find themselves in an underground cavern or anywhere that it's dark. In which case, people start being flayed alive and eaten.
Uh-oh.
So that's our first hint that there's something very sinister happening on the planet, Michael. And then the great realization, Michael, is that they have foolishly applied a Terran time cycle to the planet.
Uh-oh.
And they think that night and day is pretty standard. But it isn't, Michael. It turns out that nighttime lasts fucking months on this planet. And daytime lasts fucking months as well. And what they find is, there's actually creatures here that are incredibly photosensitive. And they can't go out in the sunlight. And they all go, "Oh, grand. Well, we'll just stay above ground then. And we won't go into any caverns. And that'll be grand until we're rescued." And then someone finds a calendar and goes, "Oh, no, hang on, lads.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hang on. The sun's about to fuck off." And what we get is my favourite bit of plot armor ever is it turns out Riddick has night vision and they fucking eat him. Because Riddick has night vision and they're about to be trapped in, you guessed it, pitch black. And they're going to try and survive all the photosensitive kind of blind batwing creatures. It's fucking mental, but it's fabulous at the same time, Michael. It's fucking tidy stuff. It's a great bit of human hubris in a new ecosystem. It's a great bit of we'll be grand as long as we stick to our moral principles. It's got all the classics, Michael. You know, the humans start to turn on each other. You've got rich humans, you've got working class humans, you've got some religious humans, you've got police. It's fabulous stuff, Michael. But in the end, everybody gets eaten by big leather-winged blind monsters.
Benjamin, I could be misremembering this because I haven't seen it in 15 years. But is it in Pitch Black where one of the minor characters is a girl in disguise as a boy? And does Riddick say that her period is attracting the monsters? Does that happen, or is that my imagination? Yeah. Is that
they
real?
Have a classic. They have a classic "don't go camping on your period" storyline.
They do, but it's real. It's true in this universe. That's gas.
But it's not a fucking bullshit misogynistic myth in this.
Yeah.
You actually can't.
Yeah, fabulous.
Oh,
Very, very good.
Fab.
Benjamin.
Fab stuff. Yeah.
All of these planets, as with everything, Warhammer 40,000 takes this to the extreme. Because in Warhammer 40,000, which is just sci-fi to the extreme, that's what it is, they have the concept of death worlds. And death worlds are entire planets which are inimical to human life, which humans, irregardless, insist on living on. And the iconic one is the planet Catachan. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not, Michael. Tell me more about Catachan.
The planet Catachan, Benjamin, is basically... It exists as a backstory for an army in Warhammer, the Catachan Jungle Fighters. And the Catachan Jungle Fighters are basically American Vietnam GIs in space. Imagine the cast of Predator as Warhammer figures. You know, you've got vests, you've got bandanas, you've got bulging muscles. And the Catachan Jungle Fighters, Benjamin, come from the planet Catachan, the deadliest death world in the entire Imperium, where even growing to be an adult is an achievement in itself, because everything is out to get you. The plants will kill you and eat you. The animals will kill you and eat you. The air will kill you and eat you. The diseases will kill you and eat you. They live their entire lives as if being in the movie Pitch Black would be a walk in the park. They'd just be like, there's only one thing that's trying to kill and eat us. This is grand. The plants aren't
This is grand.
This is grand. The way it's described in Warhammer is so extreme that it makes absolutely zero sense that anyone survives to adulthood. You get scraped by a single thorn on a bush, which is actually going out of its way and moving its tendrils to scrape you. And you're dead. You stand on an ant. Ben, they have a concept called heretic ants. Heretic ants are fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
Do you know why they're called heretic ants, Ben? This is great.
Please tell me more, Michael.
They're called heretic ants because they bite you on the bottom of your foot, Benjamin. They're called heretic ants, Ben, because they attack the soul. Isn't that the most fabulous Warhammer thing you've ever heard? Anyway, 3 bites from a heretic ant and you're dead. And they're everywhere.
Oh, that's fucking fabulous, Michael. I love that so much.
They have the brain leaf, Benjamin. This is a tree that can send down tendrils. And the tendrils go into your spine and brain and take over you and puppet you around the place. So you might see your mate going, over here, over here. And then when you get closer, you actually see it's a tree that's put tendrils into him and it's controlling him. And then it puts tendrils in you as well.
Ah, so it's just a little marionette choir at the end.
Yeah, exactly. The entire planet is unfriendly to human existence. There's every single thing that grows there is toxic and poisonous to humans. So you can't forage or grow anything that you can eat there. So you can see why the people who survive this, essentially every single soldier who comes off the planet Catachan as an adult is Arnold Schwarzenegger at the end of Predator.
Yeah, that's insane,
It's
Michael.
Terrible planet.
Let's you and I make a deal right now, Michael. What is the safe word going to be if we ever find ourselves in an alien planet with brain leaves, so that you don't come and see your pal Ben, who's been taken over by a brain leaf, and I don't come and see you? What is the safety phrase we're going to use?
If you ever see me doing this, Benjamin, I'm going, over here, over here. That means I need help urgently. Yeah, and you should trust me and come and save me.
Oh, well, that's the end of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It does beg a very interesting question, Michael, because that sounds like an awful planet.
Worst planet.
But it does beg an interesting question for Warhammer K. What would Tyranids do if they came to that fucking place?
Yeah, that's one of the favourite questions of... Let's not get into Tyranids too much, because Tyranids are probably not, in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, they're probably not nature. They're probably some sort of bioengineered killing machines.
Yeah, it's worse.
But there's quite a lot of implication in Warhammer backstory. And, you know, this is... I've done no research here. This is my own memory and
That's all right.
bits and pieces. But there's a lot of little small references that certain pieces of flora and fauna on Catachan might actually be essentially wild Tyranid bioforms that have gone feral or reverted back. So there's an implication that Catachan might have been like one of the first planets that Tyranids reached in our universe, in our galaxy, millennia ago, and they went feral and caused this planet. So a big question has always been what would happen. But to be honest, the Tyranids would send overwhelming force and just eat everything. And sure, it would take a while, but if the stuff on Catachan was eating the Tyranids, then the Tyranids would send bigger Tyranids to eat that, and they'd get all the biomass eventually anyway.
They'd win in the end. They'd win in the end. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing you take from this podcast, it's that the Tyranids will probably win in the end.
Can't be trusted.
Can't be trusted. Don't trust a Tyranid as far as you could throw it, and you couldn't throw it very far because it'd slice your face off.
Ugh.
Yeah. Tyranids are fucking awful. Look, we don't have time, Michael, to get into Tyranids, but the listeners have time to get in touch with us and let us know what their least favourite bit of nature is and what they wouldn't want to face from fiction, fantasy and beyond. You can do that in a few different ways, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us on the interwebs at www.seomrabeag.com, SEOMRABEAG.com.
It means tiny room in Irish.
Sort of a little bit, maybe. You can find us on our other website, ladies and gentlemen,
www.podcast.acast.com. Yeah. It's more updated because it's automatic.
Because it's automatic, and that's the best thing about it, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us on Instagram at Sherlockshalism Podcast. You can find us on TikTok, our largest platform, at Sherlockshalism. But you can also, ladies and gentlemen, get down there in the bloody description and hop up on the Discord where you can chat to us live.
Yeah, you can. No, you can. Yeah. I thought there was going to be something more there, but yeah, you can. 100%. Do it.
But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stop us from spreading across the galaxy, the best thing you can do is keep us happy. And the nicest way to do that is to give us a review wherever you listen, ladies and gentlemen. It helps get the podcast out to more people, and we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, my mum won't. She'd be annoyed, but sure, look, there's nothing we can do about that now.
Yeah, Michael is great, Pam. You did a wonderful job. He's a credit to you. And have a good old time praising your son. Good stuff.
I'll give you that €50 later, Ben.
Very nice. That's it from us, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next week.